I don't know what happened in the NFL this weekend. Like, seriously, that was the craziest week of football I've ever seen. Every single game had controversy. Every single game had bizarre calls and plays. How many games went to overtime? Like, what? It was so nuts that Scully actually grew eyeballs for a second. Sorry, Scully, I don't mean to get under your skin. Okay, don't hurt me. Anyway, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and welcome to my Week 15 NFL reactions. These videos don't need any introduction, and we obviously have a lot to talk about, so let's go through my plugs and get into it. So, 1, head over to gfuel.com, use code WyattzWorld, save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products. 2, if you're 18 years or older, head over to Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app, where code WyattzWorld will match up to $100 of your first deposit. And lastly, if you guys are trying to get some last-second Christmas shopping done for your parents, head over to the link in my bio. It'll bring you to parentpresents.com and show you the ultimate Christmas guide of 2022. All right, enough talking. Let's get into my reactions. Okay, so the first game we had of Week 15 was Thursday Night Football, and it was the Niners at the Seahawks, and it was about what I expected. Actually, I think I expected San Francisco to put up a little bit more points, but it was a spanking. McCaffrey went off. Brock Purdy continues to show that he's honestly just as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. Kittle had a huge day, 2 touchdowns. Thanks for showing up after the fantasy season, buddy. And their defense, as usual, had a handful of sacks. One thing I did say I was interested in, however, on Seattle's end was their offense. I wanted to know how much they could produce. And honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised by them. I know they only threw up 13 points and they lost, but going against the #1 defense in football, Geno still completed 31 out of 44 passes. Look at his receivers down here. 7 receptions, 5 receptions. I know he's not throwing for 400 yards this game, but he was hitting open targets, man. People were finding areas. All right, next game is the Colts at the Vikings, and I will run through this super quick and then give my thoughts on it because I've got some shit to say here. So starting off with the Colts team, it was very, very weird. 36 points to show, although their offense only scored 1 of them. The rest was their defense and their kicker, who got 18. And they did this all, by the way, basically within the first half of the game and then did absolutely nothing because if you didn't know, they blew the biggest lead in NFL history, and we'll get to that. Anyway, flipping over to the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, 460 passing yards, delightful day, 4 passing touchdowns, somehow finishing with a lower QBR than Matt Ryan. I don't know how that works, but hey, I don't make the fucking rules. Delvin on the ground was elite. Delvin through the air was elite. The receivers all through the air were elite. The Vikings offense in the second half of this game was seriously just unstoppable. But now this is where it all ties together with me. I think this game was staged. You tell me on a Saturday when the NFL just happens to reserve a slot for a game, when there's nothing else on besides a couple of shitty college bowls, when full focus will be on the NFL, you're telling me that the biggest comeback in history happens? That's a hell of a coincidence. It almost seems like they would want to get viewership sky high for the other game that they had reserved later that night on national television. Not slandering the Vikings. I'm not saying they're not capable of doing it. I'm just saying this game does not feel real to me. Next up, we got the Ravens at the Browns. I didn't watch a lot of this game at all, actually. I can't remember what I was doing, but doesn't look like I missed much. It was 3-13. Deshaun Watson got his first win as a Cleveland Brown. I guess that's something notable, but honestly, I think the biggest takeaway from this game is Baltimore knows what they are if they don't lock down Lamar Jackson. Even with J.K. Dobbins running for 125 yards, again, you guys aren't winning games if you don't have your guy back there. Well, you are, but you're not winning games that you should be, like this one. Look at DeMarcus Robinson, 6 receptions for 29 yards. Like, what the hell? Anyway, looking at the Browns side of things, Watson, he did okay. Amari Cooper led the team with 58 yards, followed by Peoples-Jones with 31 and a touchdown. He seems to honestly be Watson's guy. Defense also seemed to be alive. Denzel Ward had a pick and they had a couple of sacks. Myles Garrett, it looks like, had 1.5 of them. It's a game Cleveland won this week, but I don't think they would have had Lamar Jackson been playing. Moving on to Sunday night, we have the Dolphins at the Bills. In all seriousness, that was a really good game, Miami, and I'm just happy that we won. You can say the same thing about you guys that you can say about the Bills when we played you at home. I mean, I've already seen tweets saying that the winners might have been the losers of each game, even though that makes no sense. I mean, you guys cracked our defense. You did it from the beginning to the end until it looked like Tua got too cold to play. I mean, he did look miserable at the end of the game, but he hung in there. Raheem Mostert destroyed the Bills with his legs. That was awful. Jalen Phillips had that fumble sack on Josh. I mean, the Dolphins, they really did play well. But not well enough! Because Josh Allen converted back to MVP Josh Allen. Throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, also rushing for 77 yards and a game-winning rush at the end. Receiving was pretty weird, actually. I mean, everybody got involved, but the 4 people to catch touchdowns were Dawson Knox, Quentin Morris, Naheem Hines, and James Cook. Like, I don't think that's how they drew it up. But I'm not complaining. And their defense, which I pretty much just talked about when I was talking about Miami's offense, was actually pretty bad. But it was good enough to win this week, and that's really all that was important. Next game is the Eagles at the Bears. Not sure what happened here with Philadelphia. It was a really tight game pretty much the whole time, but they found a way to get it out. Now, Jalen's passing, I mean, he threw for 315 yards, but he didn't throw any touchdowns and oddly had 2 interceptions. However, he still provided 21 points for the team when he scored 3 touchdowns with his legs, so I feel like he's forgiven. Here's another cool stat. A.J. Brown had 9 receptions for 181 yards and Devontae Smith had 5 for 126. People need to wake up, man. Devontae Smith is capable of being a number 1. He essentially is. I look at A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith the same way I look at T. Higgins and fucking Jamar Chase. And really quick, I actually wanted to point out something on Philly's defense as well because I saw this morning. They had a total of 6 sacks, but it was only by 3 different guys because each guy had 2. Flipping over to the Bears side of things, Justin Fields continues to be as good as he possibly can be. He had one of the best runs I've ever seen that unfortunately got called back. I thought it was a touchdown, but he stepped out. Regardless of that, on top of his passing, he still has 95 rushing yards on his legs. There's no way he's not averaging 100 a game at this point. Also, David Montgomery, 2 touchdown day for him, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground. You played well, Chicago, just unfortunately not good enough. All right, next game was the Lions at the Jets, and I am so damn proud of the Lions. You guys are going to the playoffs. I believe in you. It's a different team. Times are different. Goff throwing for 252 and a touchdown, not turning the ball over. Receivers were looking good. St. Brown 7 for 76. Khalif Raymond 5 for 53. Brock White 1 for 51 and a touchdown, whoever the hell he is. On a Jets secondary for receivers, I think this is very good. And shockingly, Detroit's defense, they only let up 17 points. That's like 30 less than usual. Flipping over and looking at the Jets, Zach Wilson actually wasn't bad. He had a pick, but he had some very nice plays, and one of them was an immaculate touchdown pass. I think what killed the Jets this week was honestly their rushing. It was not there, and normally it is. I mean, this is 50 yards out of 5 guys. Anyway, New York, be grateful that it's not last year's Lions. Like, you guys lost to a legitimately good team, not a fluke team. All right, next game was the Steelers at the Panthers, and another game I think I was wrong on. Anyway, very weird offense for Pittsburgh here. Mitch didn't turn the ball over, and 21 of their 24 points came from running backs, including Mitch Trubisky. He had 1, Jalen Warren had 1, and Concrete Shoes Najee Harris also had 1. Defense looked to be about as usual. No interceptions, but TJ Watt, of course, had 1.5 sacks because why not? And so did Cam Hayward. Oh, and Boswell went 1 for 1. I guess that's good. Now, looking at the Panthers, I don't know what to say about them. They were the complete opposite in the run game that the Steelers were. 16 carries for 21 yards. Like, how? I do want to give credit to Sam Darnold, man. He didn't do that bad. He's been going above my expectations, so I will lay off of him a little bit. I still think he's ass, but the fact that he was able to be somewhat accurate, not turn the ball over when being pressured like he was, that's pretty impressive. Receiving game was in it. They just, much like the Jets, had absolutely no run support. Anything happen on their defense? Not really. Jeremy Chin had 11 tackles. That's pretty neat. All right, that brings us to the Chiefs versus the Texans, a game that made no sense. How do the Chiefs downplay every opponent they have? Like, I swear to God, they are skill-based matchmaking. That is what the Kansas City Chiefs are. You play them, and they will play as good as you, just enough to the point where you barely lose. Not calling the Chiefs bad. I know they're elite. I just don't understand how this game was even close for a second. Mahomes wasn't bad. 336 for 2 touchdowns, 36 out of 41 for completion. Pikachu was good. Jerick McKinnon continues to be the greatest player in the history of this planet. Travis Kelce had 10 receptions for 100 yards. Juju had 10 for 88. How is this game fucking close? Anyway, let's go look at the Texans because apparently they weren't ass. What? They were ass! How was this close? Their rushing didn't really do anything. They got 1 touchdown. Their receivers didn't do shit. Honestly, if you would have showed me the Chiefs stats and the Texans stats side by side, I would have assumed the Chiefs won this game 67-14. Next up, we got the Falcons at the Saints. I had to watch this game, unfortunately, because my friend was over and he's a Falcons fan. Other than Tyler Alligator, they were horrible. 17 carries, 139 yards, and a touchdown. Like, he was pulverizing the Saints. Drake London also had a good game, too, 7 for 70. But other than that, the Falcons looked lousy. Peeking over at the Saints, their quarterback duo was ridiculous. Andy Dalton, 151, 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill, 2 for 2, 80 yards, 1 touchdown. Alvin Kamara was okay. David Johnson, is that the David Johnson? Oh, he's on the Saints now. I didn't even know that. He played. Didn't do shit, of course, but yeah, this game was pretty lackluster. Would like to say, though, really quick to the Saints, you guys played any other quarterback this week, probably losing, because your defense didn't do anything. All right, next up, we got the Cowboys at the Jags, and something's wrong with Dak. He's at 17 touchdowns and 11 picks on the year. That's not like him. I know he had an accurate game, but it's also proving that turnovers can be overly costly. Receivers didn't do bad. CD had a great day. Noah Brown had a great day. You can point fingers at the defense here if you want, but I gotta start believing that this is a problem circulating around number 4. And if you're thinking, oh, how can Dak affect the defense? Turnovers put the defense on the field, and that makes them tired. Looking over at the Jags, the team who won, Trevor Lawrence was dominant. 318 yards, 4 more touchdowns. Like, my God, he is on a tear. Zay Jones, 109 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. Christian Kirk, 6 for 92. Evan Ingram, 8 for 62. Talk about a quarterback elevating a group of receivers. I mean, this is ridiculous what Trevor Lawrence is doing. Offensively, there's no two ways about it. The Jags kicked the shit out of Dallas this game. Their quarterback was better. Their running game was better. Their receivers were better. And I should also point out that Rashawn Jenkins was the sole survivor who picked off Dak 2 times and also logged in 9 tackles. Have a day. All right, moving on to the next game, we got the Cardinals at the Broncos, a game that I didn't watch a snap of and a game that I don't care about, but I will talk about because I know that they have some fans. So it looks like the Cardinals passing was brutal. 0 touchdowns, 3 picks between the 2 of them. James Conner had a touchdown on his legs. The receivers were decent for as bad as the quarterbacks looked, honestly. Their defense did log in a bunch of sacks, and JJ had 5 of them. But when you can't score points aside from James Conner and your kicker, like, you're not going to win. Broncos, on the other hand, scored 24 points without their multi-billion-dollar quarterback. Brett Rippon went 21 for 26, 197 yards and a touchdown. That's actually not too bad. Latavius Murray had 24 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown. That's extremely weird considering the guy's about 50. Jerry had 7 for 76. That's not too bad. Pat Surtain had 1 of the picks. The other 2 came from Justin Simmons. He's playing like the best safety in football. I don't dare say the Broncos played good because they played against 2 quarterbacks who couldn't probably start on my old high school team, but hey, you guys gotta win, so congrats. All right, next game was the Patriots at the Raiders. A very entertaining game and another game that people think is rigged. And honestly, I can't argue it because I can't explain the end. Why would Jacoby Myers throw the ball 50 yards behind him to a defender? Like, I don't get it. But hey, let's not take that away from the game. As far as the Patriots go, Stevenson was literally their entire offense. 19 carries, 172 yards and a touchdown. And other than him, nobody did anything. Raiders, on the other hand, they played fairly well. Offensively, at least, Derek Carr had 231 yards and 3 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs had 92 rushing yards. Defense looked to be pretty slow. I don't think they got to Mac once. They didn't pick him off once. But they were still able to get the win because of Jacoby Myers throwing them the ball. All right, next up, we got the Titans at the Chargers, a game I was barely right on. Similar to the Patriots, the Titans kind of were a one-man show here. It was Derrick Henry or bust. He had 104 yards and a touchdown, and aside from that, not a whole lot went on. It looks like they did catch a couple interceptions, but they apparently didn't do too much with them. Now, the Chargers, oddly, if you look at their box score, it's not going to really look like they won the game either. Herbert didn't have a touchdown. He threw 2 picks. Eckler and Joshua Kelly got them their 2 touchdowns, but neither had significant days on their legs. Keenan Allen had 80 yards, and Mike Williams had 60, but other than that, they were, pretty quiet in the passing. It honestly looks like this game should have been really close, and that's probably why it was. Still gonna give it up for Mike Vrabel, though. I know he's a loser, but he was the better coach in this game. He is the better coach out of him and Brandon Staley. And if you gave Mike Vrabel the Chargers, they would probably have 12 to 13 wins right now. After that, we got the Bengals at the Bucks. The Bengals came back and won it after getting blown out for the first half. That makes me happy. Joe Cool went off again, 200 yards and 4 more touchdowns for him. Run game was completely irrelevant. That is shocking to me, but you can get by when you have 4 different receivers catching a touchdown. Must be hard to be a Cincinnati Bengal fan, man. It must be hard to watch 3 All-Pros running down the field at one time with their hands up going, hey, hit me! Defense did their job too. They only had 1 sack on the day by the looks of it, but they had 2 turnovers, which is what gets them the extra possession to come back and win. Jermaine Pratt and Trey Flowers, so good on you guys. I think you guys were probably the deciding factor. And another note before I leave, fuck Tom Brady, because this is another game he lost and just ran off the field without saying congratulations. Don't play the sport if you're gonna be a goddamn loser. And finally, ending with Sunday Night Football, we had the Giants at the Commanders, and this was a game that had more controversy, I think, than any of them. I mean, you had a ref tell Terry that he was good and then flag him immediately after. There was a blatant pass interference at the end of the game that was ignored. I don't know what's going on with the refs, man. Something's got to change, but the Giants did get away with the win. Saquon was pretty good, 87 yards and a touchdown. Danny has been doing what he's been doing all year. Not really throwing touchdowns, but he's not turning the ball over. Hey, that's all you can ask. Receivers continue to be a group of guys I've never heard of in my entire life, but you're able to win games. You're able to win games. Should be pointed out that Thibodeau is turning into an absolute monster, though. Like, not that he wasn't, but he is really starting to take the role of his pick. However, I will say, looking at this box score, you kind of got to ask yourself, how in the hell did the Giants win this game? Especially if you look at Washington's score. This is kind of like the Chiefs in Houston. I think Washington, offensively, they look so much better. Heineke threw a touchdown, 250 yards. B-Rob ran for 90. Jahan Dotson caught 105 yards and a touchdown. Terry had 70. This offense looks miles better, if you're asking me. So I'm led to believe that it's their defense who lost them the game, and it's because they didn't have a turnover. They didn't make a sack, meaning their defense was on the field. New York's offense was on the field. Whether they had a lead by 1 point or they had a lead by 10 points, it's kind of hard to come back and win when the other team's offense is always out there. That was the most interesting outcome of that game possible because it just makes the NFC East even weirder going forward. Alright guys, and that is going to be all for my Week 15 NFL predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you already know what to do. Comment, like, subscribe, turn that bell on. I do my best to post on this channel every single day. With everything I just said, I'm going to hop off and get this edited so you guys can watch it on time. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay warm. And as always, I will see you in the next video.